Supreme Court affirms Maryam Sanda's death sentence. Bayelsa government declares 3 days of mourning for late deputy governor. Court remands Ngige in Kuje Correctional Center over fraud charge. And on the foreign scene, UK sanctions RSF commanders over links to mass killings in Sudan. Hello and welcome to News Hour on Trust TV. I am Mimuna Bagudu. Now, the Supreme Court has reaffirmed the death sentence that was handed to Maryam Sanda, the daughter-in-law of a former chairman of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, for committing culpable homicide. In a split judgment of 4-1, a 5-member panel of justices of the Apex Court restated the judicial pronouncement that ordered her death by hanging. The court resolved all issues she raised to set aside her conviction and the sentence against her and dismissed her appeal for want of merit. In the lead verdict that was delivered by Justice Moore Odumen, the Apex Court held that the prosecution established her guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. It held that the Court of Appeal's decision that upheld the sentence that was passed by the trial court was unassailable. The Supreme Court held that it was wrong for President Tinubu, being the head of the executive arm of the government, to seek to exercise his powers to grant a pardon over a case of culpable homicide, in respect of which an appeal was pending. Now, joining us via Zoom to shed light on the Supreme Court judgment is a senior advocate of Nigeria, Sam Kago. Good evening, and thank you for joining us this evening.
Good evening, and thank you for having me this evening.
Thank you. All right, let's jump right in. Now, on the Supreme Court's final decision, the court reaffirmed the death sentence and said the evidence proved Maryam Sanda's guilt beyond reasonable doubt. Now, in simple terms, just for our viewers to understand, what made the court so convinced that the earlier judgments given to her were solid?
Obviously, the evidence before it, because what you take to the Supreme Court is basically what was in issue at the Court of Appeal. And if from your case as presented by you in your own appeal processes, you are not able to convince the court that the concurrent finding of the trial court and that of the Court of Appeal were wrong, definitely the Supreme Court would upheld.
All right, I think we're having a bit of a network problem with our guest, and I'm hoping he will join us back so that we can continue. Hello, are you there? Can you hear me? All right, then let's move ahead. Our guest will join us back so that we can be able to discuss the Maryam Sanda's case. Now, a major political realignment is unfolding in Rivers State as Governor Simi Nalayi Fubara has formally defected from the People's Democratic Party to the ruling All Progressive Congress. The governor announced his decision after registering as an APC member in Port Harcourt, pledging total support for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's 2027 re-election bid. The report.
The political atmosphere in Rivers State shifted significantly today as Governor Siminalayi Fubara officially joined the APC. The announcement was made at the Government House in Port Harcourt, where the governor received his membership card from the APC State Chairman Tony Okucha. Governor Fubara said his defection is a clear show of solidarity with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, whom he credits with stabilizing his administration during the state's recent political crisis.
Now that we are all in one party, because I believe that we have always supported them, but maybe from different flats. We're now inside one flat. The job is easy to continue what we have promised, Mr. President. Let me thank the National Executive. The state chairman is representing the national chairman. I want to assure you, you can take my message back to him, that we will do everything to keep APC as the main and active progressive party in River State.
He also expressed gratitude to the APC chairman for what he described as a spiritual assignment aimed at ensuring the safety and development of River State. Fubara said he would communicate his appreciation to the party's national leadership and promised to strengthen the APC's presence and influence across the state.
It is my responsibility from this minute to ensure that the party is properly taken care of. I will assure you here that every need of the ESCO, every need of the party in the state becomes my responsibility.
For his part, the APC state chairman, Tony Okocha, confirmed that the directive to present the membership card came from the party's national chairman ahead of a formal reception by the National Working Committee.
The presentation of our membership card to you as a prelude to the official reception that you both will pan out. I'm happy that we're all agreeing to coalesce into one political party under the leadership and headship of His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR.
Governor Fubara rounded off by urging his supporters to amplify President Tinubu's achievements across River States ahead of the 2027 general elections.
All right, our guest is back on, Sam Kabo, a senior advocate of Nigeria. Thank you for joining us back.
I'm sorry for that hiccup. It happened.
All right, so I will take my first question again for clarity's sake. Now, on the Supreme Court's final decision, we saw that the court has reaffirmed the death sentence and said the evidence proved Maryam Sanda's guilt beyond reasonable doubt. So in simple terms, what made the court so convinced that the earlier judgments were solid?
It's basically the processes before it. Because what really happens on appeal is a rehearing of the case as it was presented at the Court of Appeal. So if the appellant, in this case, Maryam Sanda, was unable to convince the court that the Court of Appeal was wrong, or that the concurrent findings of the trial court and that of the Court of Appeal were wrong, then obviously the Supreme Court would upheld the judgment of the Court of Appeal as it has done. So, variably, in simple terms, it failed. The appeal failed.
According to the reports, we saw a 4-1 split, that is among the justices. So for viewers who may not understand, what does a split decision like this usually tell us about the complexities of a case?
Well, for us lawyers, that's very normal. Usually you would have one or two dissenting opinions, and it happens. But since they are in the minority, in this case, 1 out of 5, we lawyers discountenance entirely that opinion because it's in the minority. What counts as judgment and what is binding is the judgment of the majority. Basically, the dissenting judgment would have seen some aspect of the case that it felt or that he or she felt was favorable to the appellant. But beyond that, that's all. That is its value. What stands and what is reckoned is that of the decision of the majority. That stands at the judgment of the court. You cannot at any point even refer to the dissenting judgment because it's of no judicial value.
All right. The Supreme Court made it clear that President Tinubu could not even consider a pardon while Maryam Sanda's appeal was still active. And when you look at under the Nigerian Constitution, the president's power to grant pardons only applies after all court processes have been completed. So help us understand this better. Why exactly does the executive arm have no legal space to step into a homicide case that is still going through the court? And what constitutional risks could arise, that is, if a president intervenes before a final judgment, excuse me?
Well, let me start by saying that I have my suspicion that that statement, if it indeed was made by the Supreme Court, it was just an opinion off record, because obviously that issue would not have been an issue before the court. The fact that judgment was actually made means that all processes had been put before the pardon. And obviously, that issue could just come to the court as information. But beyond that, what matters is what was at issue, what was the dispute between the parties before the Supreme Court. That is what forms the judgment of the court. Opinions as to whether or not the pardon was right or wrong, in law, we call that an obiter. Yes, they are part of the society, and usually when an information of that nature is passed to them, they have every right to express their own opinion, but that will not affect the judgment as they have passed. But let me look at it again this way. The executive pardon is independent of the judicial process. The judicial process goes on its own, because the Supreme Court is the court of finality. And what it has done with its own judgment, it has put a finality to the issue of whether or not Maryam was what? Guilty. And that finding that the trial court made and the Court of Appeal affirmed was put to rest, or given a final signature by the judgment of the Supreme Court. So what that one means is that as of today, Maryam is guilty and the death sentence ends. But whether or not the pardon would be affected, I'm not too sure that it will be affected, because that's independent of that. Yes, if the position of the Supreme Court is that the pardon was unlawful because there was an ongoing process, that's something besides the point, because that issue couldn't have been argued before them as to whether or not the pardon was lawful, because that was not an issue at the Court of Appeal. And mind you, the Supreme Court's business is a rehearing of the case as it was exactly at this Court of Appeal. Nothing less, nothing more. If there is any issue that needs to be added, there has to be an application to that effect to bring in a new issue. And if that was done, fine. But if that was not done, a passing statement to me is of no moment. And in any case, to me, even if the pardon was done during the continuation of the process, who was before the court? It was Sanda herself who was trying to get vindicated, or to have the concurrent findings of the the trial court and the Court of Appeal overturned by the Supreme Court. And in that case, besides the point that the court will feel offended that there is some form of contempt that the case was already before it and the executive went ahead to dabble with it in the manner it has done, which is to say that the court, the executive was contemptuous of it. Beyond that, there was no prejudice to the what do you call it now, the prosecution at all, because it has done its point, it has been vindicated, it has won at all levels of the trial, the Court of Appeal, and the Supreme Court. It's done its own part. And if you ask me, I do not think, with due respect to the Supreme Court, that that statement would affect the pardon and the committal of Sanda's, what do you call it, death sentence to a prison term. I do not think that it should be affected at all.
All right, looking at the reactions and criticism of this case, a lot of Nigerians still feel the Maryam Sanda trial was influenced by emotion and public pressure, especially because the case involved a well-known family and, you know, it got heavy media attention. But the case went through the High Court, the Court of Appeal, and even the Supreme Court, and all three courts upheld this conviction. So from your perspective, based on the fact and the multiple rulings, would you say she got a fair trial? And how do courts protect themselves from public pressure in high-profile cases like this?
Trust me, the courts are immune and insulated. Places we are different from the jurisdictions that have jury trials, where the jurors are the ones to make determinations on finding of facts. In those cases, yes, there is always the fear that media blazes, media attention, media slants, and narratives could influence the jurors. And that's why the jurors are usually secluded during the entire tenor of the trials, so that they don't get influenced by media blaze or media trial. But in this case, you have judges whose sole business is the law, the people who are canvassing the facts and making submissions regarding the facts are the parties themselves. And I do not think in any case, for whatever reason, any of the parties there was prejudiced by media attention. In any case, both parties, both the family of the victim and that of the what would you call it now, the murderer, since that's what all the courts have said, all of them are big people, and I do not see any reason why that should even be an issue, because in the trials, by our own jurisprudence, when I mean by our own jurisprudence, by our own, I will call it this time around, adjectival or legal principle, all trials must be in public. It must be open to the public, and it is mandatory for the courts to ensure that it is mandatory that all trials are in public, and everybody should have the opportunity of witnessing the trials. It is because our courts are small. Some other jurisdictions, as long as the matter is high profile, because when it's high profile, it instigates attention from all corners of the world and from all people. And so usually to help people, what would they call it now? Bring in the media themselves, so that people in their homes could watch the trial and make up their own decision. Because, mind you, justice should not only be done, but it must be seen to be done by the public. So that's why trials are always what? Three ways. The parties before the court, and the public. All of them must and should be carried along, and their own opinions, they are entitled to their own opinions, but their own opinions should not and would not affect the trials. The only time that the courts are protected are from what? adverse commentaries that tend to impinge on the integrity of the court. That's why you have the principles of sub judice. There is a limit to which you can urge attention or urge narratives to the parties or to the court during the trials, because that in itself would undermine the authority and the integrity of the court.
Thank you, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Sam Kago, for speaking with us. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm sorry for that hiccup.
No problem. All right, moving on, the People's Democratic Party, PDP, in Borno State has announced that it will withdraw from the state's local government elections scheduled for Saturday, December the 13th. The party cited a lack of confidence in the Electoral Commission and the high cost of expression of interest and nomination forms as reasons for its decision. In a statement on Friday, PDP State Publicity Secretary Amos Aziba said the decision was made during a recent State Executive Committee meeting in Maiduguri. The party also expressed concern over the government's failure to amend the electoral bill to enable councillor results to be declared at the ward level and chairmanship results at local government headquarters. And now to Borno State, where the State Independent Electoral Commission has said it will uphold the chairmanship and councillorship elections despite the withdrawal of 11 political parties out of 17 for Saturday's elections. According to the Borno State Independent Electoral Commission, the elections will hold in all 27 local governments, while elections for Guzamala local government will be conducted in Ngajaram community due to security threats. The State Electoral Commission Chairman Dahiru Shatima said it has delivered sensitive electoral materials to its local government headquarters across the state. He revealed that security personnel have been deployed to polling units to ensure safe polls.
Because of the preparation, we are fully in compliance with this law. We are equally in compliance with the provision of 1999 Constitution, and equally with the Electoral Act 2022 as amended. So we are really within the confines of the law, and that for any election to be credible, accepted, the international recognized must be in conformity with law and guidelines, which this commission is strictly working within that ambit. As I've told you, our cost is 500,000 chairman. What I mean is you should do comparative analysis to what obtained in other states of the federation. And looking at 500,000 and 250, I think it is a bit reasonable, taking into consideration inflationary trends.
Now, Justice Maryam Hassan of the Federal Capital Territory has ordered the remand of the former Minister of Labour and Employment, Chris Ngige, at the Kuje Correctional Center. Ngige, who was arraigned on an alleged corruption charge, will remain in Kuje Correctional Center until Monday, when his bail application will be heard. The minister was specifically charged with conferring unfair advantage on his associates in the award of several contracts when he held office as minister between 2015 and 2023. He was also accused of corruptly accepting gifts of several million of naira through his organizations while he was in office. The ex-minister, however, pleaded not guilty to all the 8-count charges brought against him by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. However, his bail application could not be taken as it was served on the prosecution shortly before the court proceeded.
The defendant has been arraigned, duly arraigned. He pleaded guilty to all the 8 counts charges leveled against him. Naturally, before commencement of trial, the place of abode for him shall be nowhere other than the correctional center. And that's the application we made to the Honorable Court. But they desired that the man should just walk home from here, while there is a pending formal bail application that has been filed before the Honorable Court which we prosecution need to react to. So having gone back and forth, the court made the appropriate order, remanding the defendants in the Kuje Correctional Center, and the matter is adjourned till Monday, when we shall all come back and argue the bail application.
What we asked the court wasn't for him to go home. We wanted to ask the court, and we asked the court that because of his health condition, indeed even the AFCC agreed that he's not well, and because of his health condition, he needs to have access to medical attention. Now, unfortunately, they don't have that at the EFCC. And what I asked the court was to allow that whilst he may be anywhere, whether it's the Correctional Center or wherever he is, that he may have access to medical attention. That's what I asked the court for. And we're happy that the court agreed to come back for this matter on Monday.
Now, the Bayelsa state government has confirmed the death of Deputy Governor Senator Lawrence Erujakpo and declared a 3-day state mourning in his honor. Earlier, speculation had spread after he reportedly collapsed in his office on Thursday and was rushed to the Federal Medical Center in Yenagoa. Trust TV's Friday Ebimobowe Peter reports on the development and the reactions that followed.
Bayelsa State was thrown into mourning on Friday following the government confirmation of the passing of the Deputy Governor, Senator Lawrence Erujakpo, in a statement signed by the Commissioner for Information, Orientation and Strategy, Ebiowo Koku Obiai. The government described his death as a tragedy that came with deep regret and profound shock. The confirmation followed hours of speculation on Thursday after the deputy governor reportedly collapsed in his office and was rushed to the Federal Medical Center Yenagoa around 1:30 p.m. The incident generated widespread concern among residents, many of whom questioned the state of healthcare services.
Yesterday, we say, as we did, the rush our deputy governor come, say get cardiac arrest. So they think all warriors. So what happened yesterday, Judge should say our leaders made them know say abroad far from where they stay for Nigeria. Because what is supposed to save our deputy governor, that one lifesaver oxygen mask. They never even did the hospitals as they talk to you. Now small picky one day, which is small picky on 7 of carry out. So yesterday as the Russian come now, all the things so that they bring now from government house, anything they need, no the government house. So, and time they go. The next thing, that's what they lost our deputy governor.
It's no longer news that our dear deputy governor, we've lost our dear deputy governor. It's no longer news. It's a workaholic deputy governor, very dependable ally to our governor, and a good person, loving, peaceful in his nature. So Bayelsa missed him. We miss him so much. He's a good man. He's a good leader.
Another resident described Senator Erujakpo as a workaholic, adding that his heart had been heavy since hearing report that the late deputy governor may have suffered cardiac arrest.
Yesterday, when I heard about the death of the deputy governor, I was very unhappy. I was even crying bitterly in my heart. This kind of things has not happened in Bayelsa before. The death of the deputy governor has happened. Nobody has died as the deputy governor in Bayelsa State. And it's for appalling. It was annoying. It's bitter. We heard that the deputy governor is dead. So when I heard about the death, I had to call person for government house to be sure if the man has died. When I called the person confirmed to me that the man has died. So I was worried. Even this morning, I had to call somebody to hear about the death of the deputy. I said, what's really happened? Because I love deputy governor very well. Even though you are not giving me anything, and the person that I love with my heart. So the person called me, told me that a man collapsed when he was coming from FCS. He collapsed. After collapsing, they said rush him to FNC. From FNC, the man, whether they rush him to another place again, they didn't tell me where they really rushed him to. Just what we heard that the man died.
A visit to the Federal Medical Center revealed a quiet atmosphere, partly due to the ongoing doctor strike in the state, a situation residents says highlights the urgent need for reforms in the health sector. As Bayelsa mourns its #2 citizen, many are calling for renewed attention to the state healthcare system to prevent future tragedies. Friday, Ebimobowe Peter, Trust TV News, Yenagoa.
And now moving on, the Dangote petroleum refinery has again reduced its petrol gantry price, slashing the ex-depot rate from 828 naira to 699 naira per litre. Real-time market data published on petroleumprice.ng on Friday showed that the refinery implemented another major downward review, cutting the premium motor spirit benchmark price by 129 naira per litre, a 15.58% reduction. An official of the refinery who spoke on condition of anonymity because he was not authorized to comment publicly also confirmed the adjustment. The new price took effect on December 11, 2025, marking the 20th petrol price adjustment announced by the refinery this year. The latest reduction comes barely 5 days after the refinery's chairman, Aliko Dangote, restated his commitment to keeping domestic fuel prices reasonable and competitive despite global volatility and persistent smuggling along Nigeria's borders. Now moving on to other stories, a late afternoon fire on Thursday destroyed several offices and service rooms at Rogo General Hospital in Kano State. The Kano State Fire Service said it received a distress call at about 2:36 p.m. and firefighters from the Karaye and Rogo stations were immediately deployed. On arrival, they found the hospital's one-story building measuring about 400 by 400 feet already engulfed in flames. Affected sections included the physiotherapy clinic, MEU office, dental unit, outpatients department, ACC and card room, DOT office and the laboratory. Preliminary findings suggest the fire was triggered by an electrical spark, though a full investigation is ongoing. Now, the director of the fire service, Alhaji Sani Anas, urged residents to exercise caution during the Harmattan season. No casualties were recorded. Now, the Kano State Governor Abba Yusuf described the incident as deeply saddening and ordered an immediate assessment, full renovation and rehabilitation of the affected sections to ensure medical services resume promptly. He also reaffirmed his administration's commitment to improving healthcare infrastructure across all 44 local government areas. Now, across the African continent, courts are increasingly going beyond traditional interpretations of the law to safeguard fundamental human rights, a trend known as judicial activism. African judges are becoming more proactive in interpreting constitutions and international treaties to defend human rights, particularly those of women and girls. Now, legal practitioners across the continent say African courts are shaping justice and strengthening human rights enforcement. Victoria Tokolo sent in this report as presented from our studios.
Judicial activism refers to the proactive role of courts in broadly interpreting the law to protect constitutional rights and advance justice. In many African countries where cultural norms have long restricted women's access to justice, the judiciary is now emerging as a strong defender of their rights. Across the region, judges rely on national constitutions, national mechanisms, and international treaties to challenge discriminatory practices and uphold equality. In Nigeria, judicial activism has helped dismantle deeply rooted cultural norms that deprive women of their rights. Some female African legal practitioners who spoke on the role of judicial activism in advancing women's rights shared insights on how the judiciary is pushing boundaries to ensure justice for women and girls.
And then when it comes to the Ghanaian courts, what they've done when it comes to property rights, is that the court has established that any property that is acquired during the subsistence of a marriage is deemed as a joint property, unless you are able to prove that this is personal property acquired. So that's one, whether you are a woman or you are a man, if you can prove within a reasonable doubt that this property you acquired it on your own, and the court assesses it and believes that yes, indeed, this one is just for you, the court will give it to you. However, the law is that any property acquired within the subsistence of a marriage is deemed as joint property.
With the emergence of judicial authorities, judgment, we discovered that the women's rights has been recognized, especially in activism, whereby a lot of cultural practices that are contrary to the rights of humanity has been abolished. For instance, you find out that in some parts of Nigeria, women are not allowed to inherit land, to inherit property, because they are men, they are women.
Who are being subjected to degrading situations or situations that are affecting their dignity based on some cultural practices or customs to approach the court. There is a remedy. Where there is a right, there is a remedy. By bringing these customs before the light of a judicial power, it can be ruled upon as to whether it is repugnant to to equality, to good conscience, and it can help protect their rights.
Judicial activism in Africa continues to demonstrate that courts can drive social transformation. To sustain these gains, experts are calling for stronger collaboration among the judiciary, government institutions, and law enforcement agencies to ensure the protection of women's rights becomes a reality across African societies.
Now, the 2025 End Gender-Based Violence Week links up with the global 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, marked from November 25th to December 10th. This year's focus is Unite to End Digital Violence against all women and girls. Against this backdrop, advocacy groups are turning to creative tools, spoken word, drama, and dance to pass the message. And Trust TV's Noel Samson attended one of such gatherings and now reports.
Gender-based violence remains a serious problem in Nigeria. Reports over recent years point to rising cases of domestic abuse, sexual violence, and killings linked to gender. Advocates say gaps in reporting still hide the full scale of the problem. This explains the push for alternative advocacy through drama, dance, and spoken word. Activists are engaging communities in simple, direct ways, urging action against abuse both offline and online.
Celebration that we are doing with young people to use poetry, dance, drama, spoken word in order to unveil voices that will promote the right of every citizen of this country and also to speak against gender-based violence.
Voices Unveiled. It's an annual event we started last year with the support from the German embassy. It's a day set aside for us to look at issues of gender-based violence and how it concerns women, men, children, the rest of us actually, in a way that the society sometimes looks away from. We're looking at the issues of physical violence, emotional violence, and particularly this year we're looking at digital violence.
Trust TV also spoke with participants, many of whom said the gathering changed how they see the issue and their role in speaking up.
I aim to get more awareness on the subject of gender-based violence against women and girls in our country, Nigeria especially. I think I will take more look into cyberbullying and see its effects on people and how I can be more responsible in my digital use.
Okay, with the information I get from today about gender-based violence and human rights, I can be able to voice out when there are conversations that come up on it. I'll have more information. I'll be able to share and release information to the people that will be discussing, and it will not just be me keeping quiet because I don't have knowledge on it. So it's going to be really helpful.
Well, I intend to get experience. I intend to get values. I also intend to share values to not only to get but to also share, like a vice versa kind of thing.
The event featured spoken word performances, stage drama, and dance, all aimed at calling out abuse and pushing for respect, accountability, and safer spaces for women and girls. Well, Samson, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Now, the Broad Sustainable Women's Economic Empowerment and Peace Initiative, BSWEEP, a non-governmental organization committed to women's empowerment, peace building, girl-child education, and the fight against gender-based violence, has emphasized the vital connection between security and education at this year's end media engagement held on Thursday. The organization hosted the media launch at its Abuja office to strengthen its relationship with the press by presenting its core vision and mission, as well as reviewing key activities carried out during the year. The event provided a platform for reflection and advocacy. Veteran broadcaster and member of BSWEEP's technical team, Fatima Abbas Hassan, made a strong appeal to government authorities to intensify efforts in addressing the nation's security challenges.
We are friends of the media, and we work with the media because they are our eyes and ears. So it's only with the media that we're able to show the world what we are doing, and to gather support and then reach the society on our mission and our vision. So every end of the year we invite the media, that's our friends, to come, and then we review the activities together, and then to strengthen the relationship that we have with them, so that we continue the following while they advise us on areas of our progress. So
the government must make our schools safe. We have come a long way from some years back. More girls are being enrolled in school, but that's not good enough. There's still a large number that's been excluded for, if you ask me, different reasons. Issue of insecurity is rearing his ugly head now and is making it impossible. Parents feel it's no longer safe to send their children to school. So I'm appealing to government to please address this issue of insecurity and ensure they secure the schools so that students, our children, can have a conducive learning environment.
Women empowerment, peace, especially with the women being mothers. We are the forefront of the young ones. Start young.
Now, Speaker of the House says the country's workplace safety laws are outdated and reforms can no longer wait. At a public hearing on the Occupational Health and Safety Bill 2025, Speaker Abbas Tajuddin, represented by Honorable Olumide Oshoba, said Nigeria's fast-changing work environment has outgrown its old safety laws. He warned that millions of workers in factories, farms, construction sites and hospitals still face preventable hazards because regulations are weak and enforcement is limited. Chairman of the House Committee on Safety Standards, Honorable David Zakaria, called the bill a major reform that replaces obsolete legislation with a modern, science-based system aligned with international standards. The Federal Fire Service, represented by Chief Superintendent Sariki Abdurrahman, urged lawmakers to clarify parts of the bill to avoid conflicts with existing fire safety regulations. Now, the Adamawa State Executive Council has approved a budget estimate of 583.331 billion naira for the 2026 fiscal year. The appropriation bill, tagged Budget of Sustainable Growth and Economic Renewal, is designed to consolidate ongoing development efforts and strengthen the state's economic foundation. Briefing journalists after the council meeting, the Commissioner for Information and Strategy, James Ilia, explained that the proposed budget allocates 35.93% to recurrent expenditure, while 64.07% is dedicated to capital projects, reflecting the government's commitment to infrastructure and long-term investments. The Council also gave approval for key development projects, including the construction of the Adamawa State Traditional Council Secretariat at a cost of over 2.5 billion naira, and a football pitch and athletics pavilion at the College of Technology, Innovation and Entrepreneurship Studies, GULAC, valued at more than 1.7 billion naira, among other capital approvals.
2026 Budget Proposal and Appropriation Bill of 583 billion 333 million 380,496 naira only, as the budget cites, which has about 35.93% of its recurring services and 64.07% as the capital services. The budget is tagged Budget of Sustainable Growth and Economic Renewal. The Council has awarded the contract for the construction of Adamawa State Traditional Council Secretariat in the state, based on the SME guidelines, at the sum of 2,501,750,280 naira 88 kobo only.
In a bold move to reshape Nigeria's livestock ecosystem, the Jigawa state government has signed a strategic memorandum of understanding with the consortium of investors for a multi-billion naira alfalfa production program. The initiative aims to boost feed quality, strengthen ranching systems, and reduce recurring farmer-herder clashes in the region. The report.
New chapter in agricultural transformation is unfolding in Jigawa State, where Governor Umar Namadi has approved the allocation of 100,000 hectares of land for a pioneering alfalfa cultivation project. The partnership was formalized with a consortium of investors brought together through the efforts of the Director General of the National Information Technology Development Agency, Kashifu Abdullahi, who championed the collaboration. Under the agreement, the investors will commit multi-billion naira funding to produce alfalfa, an exceptionally rich and high-yield livestock field designed to support the state's more than 47 million animals. Experts describe the initiative as a turning point for modern livestock management. They say it offers a practical pathway toward ranching and could help reduce the persistent farmer-herder crisis by limiting open grazing. Governor Umar Namadi pledged full cooperation to the investors, highlighting Jigawa's rating by the World Bank as Nigeria's top state for ease of doing business.
So we thank you very much for your commitment, and we thank you very much for coming to the aid of the people of Jigawa State. Because I am sure this partnership is possible because of what they have seen you have started. So I want to assure the private sector, Jigawa State is open for business. And as a government, we are committed to working together with the private sector to ensure the success of this project.
So we are exploring alfalfa, which is a green field in Nigeria, or we can say in Africa in general. And alfalfa is a commodity that is very well positioned globally when it comes to fodder and animal feed. So Jigawa, we have all the soil required and the water for us to irrigate in Jigawa.
The alfalfa project is expected to begin this year in Kugama and Malam Maduri local government area, with financial backing from NEXIM Bank and the Saudi EXIM Bank. With this venture, Jigawa State is positioning itself to become a leading hub for livestock feed production and a national model for harmonious and modern agricultural practices.
Now, in a major step towards deepening Africa's industrial transformation, the Dangote Group on Thursday unveiled its ambitious Vision 2030 agenda. The report.
Over the past decade, the Dangote Group has witnessed remarkable growth across the continent, now operating more than 18,000 trucks globally. On Thursday, December 11, 2025, the President and Chief Executive Officer, Aliko Dangote, highlighted the group's achievements and massive investment drive, which has surpassed $25 billion, one of the largest single private investment commitments in Africa. Recall that in May-June 2022, the Dangote fertilizer plant came on stream, followed by the commencement of operations at the Dangote refinery in late 2024, marking a new phase in Africa's push toward true energy independence. Speaking with journalists, Dangote shed more light on the company's Vision 2030 alongside Zuwaira Yusufu, the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of the Aliko Dangote Foundation.
Exporting capitals from other parts of the world to various African countries, not exporting capital from Nigeria. But the business, we've been working very hard in trying to establish the business. You can see that this year we have already crossed about $18 billion in revenue. Next year we'll be at about $32 billion of revenue. By 2028 will be $71 billion of revenue. And we're establishing new businesses, ports, pipeline infrastructure. We're also doing power generation. We're doing steel. We're doing methanol. We're doing a lot of other things from the 28th to the 2030. I'm very, very confident that we'll meet up our $100 billion revenue by 2030.
The plan, what we're going to do is make sure that this scholarship program is felt across all 774 LGAs. How do we do this? We make sure that we have so we're not just saying, okay, so for Kano State, we're giving so many or for girls, but we're looking at all the 44 local government areas in Kano, in each one, how many girls and how do we take it all the way there? We've done this before when we've either distributed rice and made sure that it went to every single LGA. We've done it before when we did micro grants, which is where we gave money to women, to 1,000 women in each local government area. So partnering down into the community level is something that we've been used to doing, so we don't think that's difficult. It'll be the same process this time. So the number one question that I've gotten so far is, so what happens if you say you have a certain number of scholarships allocated to a certain LGA and you cannot find enough candidates? Well, we'll just give them to another LGA within the state, but the number within the state is the same number. The allocation of the beneficiaries might change according to the LGA.
The Dangote Group's Vision 2030 marks a defining moment both for the company and for Africa. It signals a future driven by industry, innovation, and global leadership, showing what is possible when African ambition meets strategic investment.
Now, away from Nigeria, the United Kingdom on Friday imposed sanctions on senior commanders of Sudan's Rapid Support Forces RSF, suspected of heinous violence in the Darfur hub of El Fasher, which the paramilitary group captured in October. The Foreign Office in London said those targeted, including RSF second-in-command Abdurrahim Hamdan Daglo, whose brother Mohammed Hamdan Daglo is the group's leader, as well as 3 other commanders. They are accused of mass killings, systematic sexual violence, and deliberate attacks on civilians when the RSF dislodged the Sudanese army from El Fasher, its last stronghold in the western Darfur region. They now face UK asset freezes and travel bans. The government said the RSF's actions in El Fasher were not random, but instead part of a deliberate strategy to terrorize populations and seize control through fear and violence. In a statement unveiling the UK curbs Foreign Secretary Vitae Cooper said the atrocities taking place in Sudan are so horrific they scare the conscience of the world. It's time for sports update with Adeni Ajishafe.
Rivers United head coach Finidi George has praised his team for their resilience and growing confidence on the road after securing another impressive away win at New Jos Stadium, Jos Plateau State. A hard 4-2-1 win over Plateau United started with the host forcing Rivers United to dig deep after conceding early to a Nenrod Silas strike. The equalizer came through Boluwaji Sholumade, returning from suspension and announcing himself immediately with a composed finish to drag Rivers United level. In the second half, the Pride of Rivers pressed Plateau United into a comfortable long balls as they struck late with a counter-attack leading to a cross from Okon Aniekeme, which Plateau United defender kicked into his own net to seal the away victory. The win moved Rivers United joint top of MPFL table alongside Nasarawa United, still with a game in hand after amassing 11 away points, the highest in the MPFL this season and remaining unbeaten on the road.
And look for the second ball, which gave us an edge. While we win the second ball, we have the whole field, to operate. So we are quite happy. Last Sunday, I think we would have gotten another 3 points against Abia Warriors, but it didn't happen. They scored the last minute. So out of 2 games, we have 4 points, which is not a bad one. So we are quite happy.
Rivers United return home to host Wiki Tourists at Adokia Mesiamaka Stadium on Monday. That's Sport News. I'm Adeni Ajishafe.
With that, we've come to the end of News Hour on Trust TV. Do well to follow us on all of our social media platforms and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more news. I am Maryam Sanda. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend and good night.